Hello guys, welcome to my channel BM Reviews. Today we are gonna discuss how Sylvie's MCU origin creates a huge Kang plot hole nobody's talking about. If you are new to this channel, please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get instant notification. The MCU's Sylvie origin story becomes even more muddled when one considers He Who Remains scheme during Loki seasons 1 and 2. In Phase 4's first season of Loki, Sophia Di Martino made her stage debut as Sylvie. Sylvie was a female version of Tom Hiddleston's God of Mischief who had spent the majority of her existence evading the Time Variance Authority. Many Loki variations made their Disney Plus premiere in Loki, but Sylvie was the most well-known and important of them all because it was thanks to her murder of Jonathon Majors, He Who Remains, in the first season of Loki that the sacred timeline was shattered and the multiverse's power was unleashed on later Marvel Cinematic Universe ventures. Slightly more mysterious than Tom Hiddleston's initial portrayal of the God of Mischief, Sylvie's genesis story in the MCU remains a mystery even though she is the most common form of Loki in the multiverse saga. She was cut off from her branching timeline as a toddler by the TVA, but she managed to flee before being chopped off and taken to the void. Sylvie dedicated her life to overthrowing the TVA and its mysterious founders, the Time Keepers, but as they were exposed as fiction, she turned her attention to He Who Remains. The revelations in Loki Season 2's end left the entire plot perplexed, despite the fact that Sylvie's Loki plotline was undoubtedly emotional. The initial arrest of Sylvie by the then TVA in the first minutes of Loki Season 1, Episode 4, the Nexus event, Hunter Ravana Renslayer was introduced, giving some background on Sylvie's upbringing in Asgard and elucidating the duration of her escape from the TVA. Despite Renslayer's denial that she can recall Sylvie's Nexus incident, the mystery surrounding it remains unsolved. He Who Remains' appearance in the Loki Season 1 finale may provide some light on the matter. With his powerful entrance as Kang the Conqueror, Jonathon Majors hinted that another multiversal war may be sparked by the advent of another Kang version as a result of Sylvie's timeline. The suggestion made by He Who Remains that the events surrounding Loki and the MCU in general were a part of his larger scheme suggests that he gave the TVA the order to remove Sylvie from her timeline knowing that she would eventually kill him. He took this action with the knowledge that Loki would use his time-slip powers to return and maybe murder Sylvie in order to strengthen He Who Remains' status as the sacred timeline's protector. He Who Remains used Sylvie as his own murder weapon, which made his plot to repeatedly have himself killed unethically and complex, but he overlooked one very important aspect. The goal behind He Who Remains' scheme was presumably that Loki would only think about himself and would eventually find it extremely simple to eliminate Sylvie, leaving the Kang the Conqueror clone to continue in his important role supervising the sacred timeline. But after meeting Sylvie at the end of Loki Season 1, Episode 2, The Variant, Loki started to drastically transform. Loki begins to consider why he might truly want to maintain the TVA and preserve the sacred timeline in light of Sylvie's presence and motivation to overthrow them, which sets up a fight between the two in the Season 1 finale of Loki. The Kang variation believed that Loki would be persuaded to reverse his death upon discovering the truth about the temporal loom and the perils of the multiverse, even if Sylvie had initially prevailed in this battle and killed He Who Remains. But as Loki's relationship with Sylvie developed, he was thrust upon a heroic course that ultimately made him realize that He Who Remains need not supervise the sacred timeline. Instead, he could watch over the infinite branches of the multiverse if he was only prepared to give up his own freedom. He Who Remains anticipated that Loki would murder Sylvie so he could carry on with his mission, but Loki chose to disregard He Who Remains and handle things himself. In the second season finale of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the title character Loki was introduced as a new deity. He gathered the branches of the cosmos and kept watch over them from his new location amidst the debris of the Citadel at the end of time. All of this stems back to Loki's initial meeting with Sylvie. Loki's magic keeps them alive, and the TVA has been changed into an organization for good since it is no longer required to remove any branching timelines or prune any varieties. If Loki underwent such a profound transformation that he was able to elude He Who Remains' scheme, then it follows that He Who Remains was accountable for both his own demise and the fact that it could not be reversed. All of these things may be traced back to when the TVA first removed a young Sylvie from her history. He Who Remains' life would never have been in danger if this had never occurred. If Sylvie had stayed on her timeline, the sacred timeline would never have been destroyed, and at the conclusion of Loki Season 2, Loki would not have assumed the role of protector of the multiverse. But if Sylvie had stayed on her original timeline, it might have led to the creation of a new Kang the Conqueror variation and another multiversal war. Alternatively, the TVA could have avoided this problem entirely by wiping Sylvie's previous timeline and never bringing her to the TVA. The whole point of He Who Remains' elaborate scheme was to maintain his authority, and eliminating Sylvie would have done just that while also removing the need for any of the intricate details. Erasing a timeline to remove a hazardous child version would not have been a problem because the TVA had no morality prior to Loki's emergence. Throughout his self-titled Disney Plus series, He Who Remains seems to have underestimated Loki, placing all of his trust on the notion that Loki would easily flip on Sylvie. To guarantee his friend's survival, Loki ultimately gave up everything he had ever known. He sentenced himself to an endless period of solitude, allowing his friends, which included Sylvie, Mobius, Hunter B-15, Casey, Ouroboros, and even the Kang the Conqueror variant Victor Timely to live happy, free lives on any timeline they choose. Though Loki is now defending the entire multiverse, He Who Remains' convoluted scheme may have guaranteed the safety of the sacred timeline. That's it guys for this video. Please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get instant notification. Thanks for watching.